I don't want a supercar. I just want some chickens, some cows, and some sheep.
I want to be fucking Iron Man.
But with Fiat, the issue is that it's adoption. Everyone uses Fiat. So how do you go against that? How do you argue against it? We know it's not sound. It doesn't. Sorry?
Everyone used horses.
Well, the rich did. The poor got trampled by them.
Okay, here we are back once again for your weekly updates with regards to everything Bitcoin. The 4Bs brought to you by Mr. All-In, aka the $1 Trillion Man. He is Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, Sir Neverlook, also known as the Excellence of Execution. And surprise, surprise, we're recording as always on Tuesday evening, but Mrs. No Show is a no-show, nowhere to be seen. Right, so we sent her the link, she's still not arrived. Don't know what's going on.
She hasn't asked for the show notes, though.
It hasn't asked for the show notes at all. No comment whatsoever. So we continue to wait.
I think it's more likely the Queen attended tonight than Mrs. No Show.
Indeed.
Or good old sausage fingers.
That's the one. Yeah, what can we say, hey? Queen Elizabeth is no longer with us, similar to Mrs. No Show.
And what's everyone's thoughts? Queen's dead. He's sad. He's in mourning.
I mean, it's just I don't really care. I think that's my kind of view. I've seen two polarizing views. Like one, people who love the Queen, love the monarchy, they love the overlords, and two, people who are probably being a bit too disrespectful or just plain stupid when they're blaming the Queen for everything which the British government has done. But I just think, it's someone's grandma. It's someone who probably tried to do their best. So it's just,
yeah,
just don't, yeah.
Yeah, that's how I look at it as well. Effectively, it was someone's grandma, someone's mum. I had nothing bad to say about her, but equally nothing good.
Yeah.
At the same time, this whole forced mourning for the 19th of September.
Well, we have a bank holiday. We have a bank holiday Monday from it, which I suppose is one kind of upside.
Yeah.
Which I needed because they first of all announced that schools were having a bank holiday, but we weren't too sure that businesses were. So I was like, oh, great. Who's going to look after my child?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a good email. I didn't know this whole bank holiday thing was going on. I got an email from the CEO of B&Q telling me that in respect for everything that's going on Monday, we're closing the store. I just instantly replied, going, guess I'm going to Homebase then. I'm awaiting a response. I'd probably guess that Homebase is also closed, but I could. The CEO of B&Q has never put his name on an email to me before. Normally, it's just buy this lawnmower, buy this barbecue.
I thought you were going to tell us that you work at B&Q. I thought Bitcoiners meant to work at McDonald's.
Promoted, yeah. But it's weird though. I must admit, like when Diana, the only thing I can relate it to, right, is when Diana died. I remember where I was. I was in college, and I was like sat on the floor and just like doing some work or something, preparing for like a lesson. And then it came on the news, and I actually remember being like actually affected by it for whatever reason. It might be because I was young, or for whatever reason, I actually saw
because
her.
you're funny.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I was. Whereas like this time it's happened. Obviously, I now have no love for like any of the royal family whatsoever.
I remember Diana. Everyone was slating her before she died. Then suddenly everyone loved her when she died, and I was just like, I kind of thought this is a little bit two-faced, claiming everyone loved her, but I remember all the news articles, all the kind of reception around Diana. No one liked her.
Well, the thing is, like, the news and what people think are two different things, right? Because you have a look at,
but
you say like
now,
everyone hated
20
Diana
odd
back
years
then, they
later,
didn't. The media hated Diana because she was dating a Muslim and embarrassing the royal family, whereas the people still loved her. Whereas in this instance, I think the Queen's died. The media are telling us that everyone loved them and everyone's in mourning, and in reality, no one gives a shit. It's like, okay, fine, like someone's lost a grandma. We'll like we respect their time to grieve. But don't push it on me. I ain't going to the fucking funeral. I didn't know the old lady. Like, leave me alone. And it's very like, I think the media tell us what we think we should think, and nearly on these big occasions, I think they're on the opposite side of the fence, and the people actually, the majority anyway, think something very, very different. But it almost gets lost in time because all that's left are the media articles. So we assume, oh, that was what people thought at the time, and it actually wasn't.
Correct. Yeah, and ultimately they have to be seen, I'm sure, to be towing the line as well from the royal stance. If any of them dared to step out and say, well, actually, she wasn't a fan of Diana, who the people were a fan of, then yeah, it just wouldn't work.
Yeah, but then so our first story on here is the new King Charles III. Someone's dragged up it's a slightly old clip. I think it's from about a year ago during lockdown, but there he is at the WEF forum talking about the Great Reset, and he's there threatening if we don't, and it's interesting his wording actually. Instead of saying build back better, he goes, unless we build more consciously and green, then if we don't, there's going to be more pandemics, more lockdowns, a climate crisis, and he's just even though he doesn't mean it, it comes across as a threat. So
yeah, I mean, I was listening, going, if we don't build back green, we're going to get more pandemics. How does that work?
I know
it makes no sense, and I saw it and just went, what the fuck? When was it, the clip from?
It's from their last conference, which I think was over 2021.
Oh, is it? Oh, it's a COP26. Now I remember. I think I saw it in the comments. So it was a year or two ago when they flew all the private jets there, all the private yachts, and they had all the American motorcades coming across. And it's just like, you need to cut down on your emissions. But Prince Charles and Boris Johnson all flew up to Glasgow instead of taking the train.
Yeah, and the thing is, he's a WEF puppet, Charles. Because the thing I always look at, right, is he should have been king years and years and years ago. The Queen was clearly so frail, should not have been doing all her duties. She was barely doing any duties. She's freaking 96, the poor lady. But
she seemed fine until Prince Philip died.
Yeah, she's still in her 90s though, right? And usually it would have been handed over. But the reason was like the public would never have accepted Charles being given it like willingly. It would have been rejected, and they knew the public would reject it, and Charles would never really be kind of brought in. But the perfect way to give Charles the kingship is have his mum die, and then whilst she's dead, there's a load of sympathy that comes his way. The poor guy, his mum's died. Everyone's going to feel for someone when their mum dies. So they're going to be now like the sympathy. So now he's slotting in through the sympathy vote. People aren't resisting it. It's like tradition, like, come on. Like, we can't break tradition. Like, so it has to go to Charles. So now suddenly he snaked his way in. No one wanted Charles. Everyone was like, skip him and go to William. But William is a problem. He's a problem just as Harry is a problem. They're outspoken. They would not agree to read out half the things that these guys, that Charles would read out. They need another 20, 30 years.
No, Harry would.
Harry wouldn't read out shit.
Oh, Harry's furthest the one that would actually...
Harry would do this. He'd be fucking licking their arseholes to read this kind of shit out.
No, he wouldn't.
He'd just put some inclusive words in there, he'd be all over it.
That's they kicked him out over to America to shut him up because he was being too outspoken.
Yeah, I think he's the furthest that they want anywhere near the firm.
I think we're kind of going on a bit of a side point. I think kind of going back to the video, he talked about military force on private companies, didn't he? To make sure they behave. And I kind of just went, this is going well and truly into socialism.
Oh, yeah. It's yeah.
It's like, in true socialism, he loses all his privileges, all his land. But what will happen is it won't be socialism, it'll be the plebs and the elite. Yeah, exactly. So it's basically it'll be a land grab, he'll get more. Whereas in true socialism, he'd have everything taken off him because he is part of the problem with society. He owns numerous pieces of land. He owns palaces which could have homeless people in them.
Instead, it does have poor people in those palaces, but they're slaves that work for him.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Modern day slavery.
Yeah.
And just the next story that links to this one is the beautiful thing is, guess what? The richest guys on the planet, the elitist of the elite, don't pay taxes. They do. When the Queen dies, typically anything over £1 million in the UK, 40% inheritance tax would get.
It's much lower than that, isn't it? Isn't it something like 300 grand per parent?
You can get the estate up to £1 million. I think with your joint parents anyway.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I think
anyway, whether it's 600 to £1 million, it's like in the Queen's terms, it's negligible, right? You hit that just going through her front yard. So the rest of it should be taxed at normal capital gains. But the Queen, and the tweet is brilliant on this one, because the only reason why they don't get taxed inheritance is to special legal clause that aims to avoid erosion of the royal family's wealth.
Correct.
What about the erosion of the average family's wealth? Oh no, don't give a fuck about that. But the royal family having their wealth eroded, no, we don't need a specific law to protect them. They're the people that need protecting them. They're the ones that can afford this hit. Instead of having 100 castles, they'd have 60. Whereas for the average person, that is the money that they would give to their children that would help them buy their first house. That's all we're talking about. It's just, and the amount of people I've seen defending this, going, yeah, of course you need to protect the royal family's wealth. Like, and you're going, can you not relate back to yourself? Like, Jesus Christ, what are you doing?
Yeah, they own towns and villages, which is absolutely ridiculous. Like, if they owned a palace, or say 10 palaces, then you kind of going, fair enough, but they own land, they own parts of Cornwall, they own that whole town or village which we were talking about before. It's actually ridiculous amount of stuff which they own. Yeah, and it's surely absolutely. That should be taxed and given back to the people if he really did believe in socialism.
What she handed over is reportedly around about 500 million, right? So that would have been slashed down to 300 million. But that's just in assets, not just, let's not forget everything else that would have come along with all of that as well.
Yeah, that's just, I think, like his personal wealth, like the crown has even more.
Correct.
Like I said, it owns a huge percent of the countryside. It is owned by the royal family in the UK. It's insane.
I think I saw a figure of around about 28 billion in total.
Yeah. Like it actually amazed me that Charles only has 500 million. Like that, it's like no way is that legit. Like just like the palace, just like Buckingham Palace is worth that. It's the amount of land and like it's in the centre of London, all the jewels that are in it. That's $500 million, if not a couple of billion. And then that he's the Prince of Wales. He owns half of Wales. Like he's got everything. Like come on, like let's not be silly. And weirdly, I had a few arguments with Bitcoiners about this one, where they're going, "Why are you defending someone to pay tax? Yeah, we should be promoting no tax." And I go, "Yeah, I do support no tax. I absolutely am a zero tax person." But what we're living in right now is the worst of both, where we have the poor paying the taxes and the elite not paying any. I'm not going to support the elite not paying any whilst it's this situation.
What could that 200 million be used for? A number of new schools, a hospital, but instead it's staying with the elite.
Yeah, print. Like imagine that's like probably equivalent of, I don't know, like 5% inflation for next year. They could not do that and just take some of Charles's money. But
they love doing inflation, and then they tell everyone it stimulates the economy. So going to a point, it's 325 is the threshold, and then it says if you give it to your children, it can increase to 500 grand.
And that's per parent, I think.
Yes, so I think the million probably is where that's come from.
Yes.
So, but I think, the 300 grand of it that's probably like this, the price of an average home. In 5 years' time, it probably will be £1 million per home.
Yeah, and then you'll be paying, because I was surprised at the million actually when my grandparents died. We realized, we thought we were gonna have to pay inheritance tax, and then they realized it was up to this £1 million, and I was very skeptical. I thought the solicitor got it wrong, but yeah, he got it right, and there was no taxes to pay, which I thought was actually relatively all right. But if they'll leave that for 30 years, so then by the time like we die and stuff, yeah, like you said, the average house price will be over £1 million, and
just for reference on that, income tax was brought in the early part of the 20th century, and I want to say about 1945, it was a small fraction of people paid income tax, so they only went into the brackets. It was only a few percent.
Yeah.
Whereas now the majority pay income tax because it's left again. So I think we touched upon it. The American laws keep on talking about $400,000 being the rich amount. So that's £100,000 now, isn't it? The £100,000 in the 80s, which allowed you to retire early, have a flash car, have a big house, is 400 grand. So it's the same. You're going to get paid more and more tax. Like a minimum wage is going to be 40% soon.
Yeah, when the Americans revolted against the British and they had their big Independence Day, the amount of taxes the Brits were putting on America at the time that caused them to have a huge war, 2%. So American won their freedom. Now they tax their own people 50%. Yet they say they're free. It's like you ran from 2% inflation, 2% tax, and walked straight into 50%. Like, I don't think you won the battle there, guys.
America, the land of the brave and the free.
I'm a heavily taxed.
Yeah, I'm heavily taxed. Interestingly enough, as well, like just coming back onto the Bitcoin front. Imagine if you just put 1% into Bitcoin.
Oh, there's zero chance.
Yeah.
Not only he doesn't even have access to money. Come on.
I know.
He is a village idiot.
I've seen that Liz Truss is pro crypto. Not, she hasn't gone so far as to say what, but pro crypto that I've seen.
She is pro crypto. She's pro CBDCs, the same as fucking Rishi is. She's on the website. Her and Rishi are both on the website. It didn't matter who won between those two. They're going to push CBDCs and go, oh, it's a little bit like Bitcoin. No, it's not. It's like fiat, but with all the surveillance. She's
it's pretty much exactly what you had, but we'll redesign the system so we can spine you more, and we'll take banks out of it, so we'll charge you the transaction fees instead.
Yeah, they're being very clever. Like, whilst they're diminishing cryptocurrencies and constantly saying they're volatile and for criminals, they're also going, oh, CBDCs are similar to them, to try and they're kind of baiting you in to go, I am pro it, but really what they're only saying a CBDC is like a cryptocurrency is so they can say they're pro them, but they're only pro the government one. Like, they're not going to be promoting any random fucking coin, especially not Bitcoin.
Interestingly, talking about politics, the new leader of the Conservative parties is it Conservative in Canada? Pierre, so pro Bitcoin, the one who spouted out. But it's a really interesting point. Is he an actual Bitcoiner, or is he just a snake in the grass? Is he just a way to get CBDCs in?
Yeah, well, it's one of our stories, right? So we can talk about him if you want.
Yeah, we can. We can jump to that. So Pierre Poilievre.
I missed that.
Great minds think alike. It was on there anyway. Yeah, so Pierre Poilievre. So before, like, he's been very pro Bitcoin, and to be fair, like, he's been very anti-lockdown, very anti all the restrictions that Trudeau's
anti-mandate, and he was pro. I don't know, it's pro-choice, but he's pro-protest for the truckers. He said it is disgrace what happened to them.
Yeah, and he wanted to know where the money was being spent, like where was the money coming from, and he has spoken very positively about Bitcoin. He has been to a couple of Bitcoin events, but he's a politician, so we can't really trust him that much. But when we discussed him last time, he was just a random politician in Canada, and he was running to be leader of the opposition. And at the time, I was skeptical whether he'd even get it. I thought he would get kiboshed, someone would stop him from getting there. It hasn't happened. He's actually been voted in as the leader of the opposition. And as of now, there's a genuine chance he ends up leading Canada, which it would be one hell of a contrast between him and Trudeau. And already the story that I link next to it is Trudeau is already out. He's got the guns pointed straight at Pierre, and he's specifically targeting him, telling people that they can opt out of inflation by investing in cryptocurrencies is not responsible leadership. Fighting against life-saving vaccines is not responsible leadership. Opposing the pandemic supports that save jobs and help families is not responsible leadership, says Trudeau. I did reply to this tweet.
Funnily enough, opposing a pandemic supports that save jobs and help families is not responsible. Funnily enough, when I think about him, I think about that horse-faced one from New Zealand. What's her name?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, but I know what you mean.
Jacqueline Ardern. And apparently she's ended all the mandates in New Zealand.
Yeah,
because there's just no proof behind them. So it's actually interesting, second part of that. And I think he, like Biden, is got really, really low ratings at the moment. So him coming out and fighting against all this, when I think quite a lot of the population is saying, well, you didn't follow the science at all. And all the things coming out in the media are showing that. And he's still clinging on to it.
Yeah.
What I'd be interested in with regards to Pierre is the fact that Canada is a very expensive place to live. So inflation naturally occurs because there's a lot of Chinese people that live there, and property prices.
So what you're saying is the Chinese people cause inflation?
I'm saying that they just like COVID. If we're going to get cancelled, why not? Yeah. So and I know this because my auntie lives there as well. So I've had like first-hand updates for the last 30 years in terms of like rising prices and costs.
What does she think of Trudeau?
I'll ask her actually. I'll message her and see if she even follows it.
If she's pro Trudeau, you're gonna have to disown her.
Fuck you, auntie.
Yeah. No. But
at this point, he literally is a bit of a monster, right? It's just kind of insane how far he's gone. Like the last couple of years, he's gone full authoritarian. There's no way of trying to twist that. He's
isn't his party liberal? Isn't it called Liberal Socialists, something like that?
Well, things all the left-leaning parties are like associated with being liberal, but they are the most authoritarian parties you can get now. They all want lockdowns, forced vaccines. They want rules and big government everywhere. That is like the opposite of being liberal. Liberal is meant to be leave everyone the fuck alone.
Yeah.
I think everything which you're talking about there, so inflation, like Pierre talks about it all the time, and he's got some great speeches, which I think people can easily find on YouTube. So there's one where he asks where the money is, and when he talks about when he talks about it enriches the rich, and then he also talks about the house prices and bring them back down. But something which he harps on about is Canada has a lot of natural resources which Trudeau refuses to drill. So oil, they've got a shitload of oil which is profitable to drill now. So originally when oil was cheap, it was not profitable to drill, but now the price is up and has been for like 20 years. They should be drilling it, but he refuses to.
Control and demolition.
Mm.
Biden's Biden's identical, same is happening in America. Shit ton of resources. They're shutting down their coal mines.
I was just going to say, he refuses to drill for oil, but now they've just released most of their oil over the last few weeks to lower the price. So it's literally making it better for the short term, but in the long term, it's going to go to absolute shit.
Yeah, or they're just like, yeah, and they want thanking. It's like we always say, they come in, they break your leg, and then they give you the crutch, and they want you to say thank you. It's like you caused the problem, and then what they do later, 6 months down the line, they kick the crutch out from under your leg. And you're like, what did you do that for, dude? And then they give you a slightly smaller crutch. You're like, okay, thanks, but it's not as good as the last one. And they kick that out, and eventually you're lying down on the floor, and they're like, oh, I'll give you a mattress.
We've got that in the UK at the moment. So we've got, they locked us down, made people not work. And we're like, oh, here's some, what's it called? Furlough money. And now they're going, your energy bills are really high because, one, inflation, and two, because we're meant to manage the economy. We're meant to manage all the resources going forward, but we haven't planned for anything. We should have been putting, more nuclear, then combining renewables with nuclear. So you've got easy energy coming in, but we haven't done that. But we've been taking all your taxes, but we'll give you £250 towards your gas and electricity bill. But that's against a loan as well. So it's going to have to be paid for with debt. So whether that debt comes from more taxes or whether it comes from inflation down the line, means that you're going to get more. So it's either the gas and electricity is going to cost more, or you're going to get taxed more, whether that's hidden in taxes or whether it's visible. Oh, inflation.
I know, yeah. Well, the thing I liked was, specifically around gas prices, was someone tweeted out that they were trying to give Biden and all his cronies credit because gas prices have fallen for 89 consecutive days. This is the longest streak of decline since 2015. But it still completely misses the fact that the price of oil went up, and gas, by 300% last year. So all these declines still have not even undone.
What's the decline over 89 days? Is it like 2%?
No, to be fair, like the decline is from 5,000 to 3,700. However, it misses out the fact that the price was originally around 1,500. So we're still over double. So yeah, the price has declined for 89 days. That is correct. And it is quite a big decline. We've declined, what's that, 30%, something like that. It's pretty decent. But it's still up 120% or something. So it doesn't count. Like it's still hugely up. Yet they're using that, and it's so easy. Like as I always say, like you can always lie with stats and statistics. Sex lies and statistics. It's so easy to lie with data, and that's what they're doing. It's so disingenuous. It's
like the
big media.
Was it Labour in the late 90s telling everyone they cut the waiting list for the NHS, and they just created a secondary waiting list?
That's a good one. That's a good one.
So you had to waiting list for a waiting list, but they didn't count the first waiting list as a waiting list because you had an appointment, even though it was 6 months away.
Fucking genius.
So how far do you think Pierre's actually going to get in terms of it? Does he have enough of a following? Because
I like all his tweets.
Yeah, but you're not going to be the one that's voting. Do we believe that Trudeau has done enough to alienate himself from like the trucking incident to actually give wind to Pierre to actually make a battle of this?
Yeah, I think if it's a fair election, I think it's a no contest. I think Pierre will wipe the floor with Trudeau, but I don't think it'll be a fair election. I think just as Biden against Trump, I don't think Biden did enough to beat Trump, so they just fixed the election. They just.
But I think that you've got someone who everyone's like,
did you say elections are fixed?
Oh yeah, elections are total fucking.
I mean, with the Democrats, they can fix it to a certain point, but I feel like with Biden, he's a bit of an unknown. They're just like, oh, he's a nice granddad. It wasn't really out in the news too much, but he sniffed young girls' hair, or he took showers with family members. Sorry?
I don't think anyone thought Biden was a nice granddad. Everyone thought he was a bit.
Yeah, but he was kind of nice compared to Trump, who doesn't really come across as the nicest. So I think he could kind of get there. Whereas Trudeau, I'd be very surprised if he's not universally disliked.
You think Biden genuinely got there because he was a nice granddad? He's a dementia.
I know. I mean, they fixed it to a certain point, but I just don't think they can cover it up as much as they could with Trudeau. I just don't think any basis votes will be.
It's weird because weirdly, I actually think Trudeau has more of a chance, more legitimately than Biden, because I think he's mentally sound. He's very well spoken. He presents,
but he's a horrible bastard.
Yeah, but he's horrible and he's so nice as he does it. So a lot of people get tricked by that. So I can see a lot of people voting for him because he just says the right things. He just says Canada first, people's health. You know, I want every family to be happy. Oh, how are you going to do that? Tax them, lock them, force vaccinations on them. Well, but he doesn't say it like that. That's the actions behind the thing. But he presents it in such a neat package. Biden couldn't get a sentence out and that's
why he hid in his basement.
Yeah,
I remember
didn't even have a campaign. Like, it's just he got the record number of votes ever and didn't have a campaign. Like, none of these things make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember having a dentist who used to say, "Oh, we're gonna have to give you a filling," but the way she said it, it was in the nicest way possible. I was just like, "Oh, okay, right. That'll be more money." Yeah, you're right. Actually, it will be more money. Okay, so I'm just going to inject you now. And the way she did it was perfect. I was in the chair. she had the glasses on, and too late.
You come out of a whole like row of gold teeth.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. But what I was also, whilst we've just been talking as well, the last general election in Canada was in 2021, so it won't be until around about 2025 when our guy can even maybe get a look in.
But at least he gets at least he gets a good run up to it. So 3 years. So you think if it was a
time to ruin him as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. But if it was a year away, you know, it's too short a time to make sure that the population understands his policies, which is basically, let's try and sort out the inflation problem, let's drill for oil. And with this, we should be able to make things a bit more affordable for the population.
Also know what's going to happen in those 3 years. He's going to get invited to every single WEF meeting going. They'll try and turn him. And the thing is, everyone has their price. And they will line up stuff for him. It will look so fruity. He'll go, look, we will do everything you want to do, but you need to give up some of the controls. You need to hire this guy, this guy, this guy when you get in. But in exchange, mansion, yachts, you get to come to every party.
He's not from a rich family either, is he?
It's so even worse. Right?
I was going to say he's adopted as a child. I don't know what his
The problem is, I think Obama was the same, but Obama got turned. As he got close to the seat, he got turned. And I think Trudeau and these Ardennes, they were got from birth. They're their WEF babies.
I was going to say Ardennes ended up, being in office for 5 years and being on about 150 grand salary. And now she's got a fortune of over 20 million from nowhere.
Exactly.
And no one's questioning it.
It will come from these little WEF meetings, and when you read off the teleprompter, it's worth a lot of money behind the scenes. Lots of shares end up in your account. You get lots of good tips. Maybe buy this share.
Look after you afterwards as well.
Oh yeah,
not just when you're in
real
office,
rewards come when you come out of office. Yeah.
Correct.
If anything, it's crazy to give money whilst they're in office. It's a little bit obvious.
Yeah, because Arden. If you look at it, I think they've got like a worth like so many years ago, and they're just like, what the fuck has happened? But no one's picked up on it. Whereas typically you get a Tony Blair, and Tony Blair is worth millions upon millions because of all the deals which he did.
Yeah, they all paid out once he left office. Yeah?
Which is the usual way.
It's so corrupt.
Allegedly.
But that's why this is why, like, nothing is alleged. It's all fucking facts. Like he is rich now. He wasn't rich before. But this is why, bring it back to Bitcoin, why decentralization is so important. because even though Pierre, right, he seems like he's a Bitcoiner, he seems like a good guy. I think he does want to change the world for the better, but he's a centralized person. Someone can get to him. They could either threaten him with something bad, or they can promise him something good, and he will change his views and turn against the people. He's just one person. It's a central point of failure. Bitcoin being decentralized means it doesn't matter which Bitcoiner you get to. You can turn Pierre, you could turn me, you could turn Dr. 10%, you could turn Senevaluk. We could all be turned if the price was right, but it doesn't matter. Bitcoin just chunks along.
The money supply can never be changed.
Exactly. Bitcoin.
Something which I was thinking about, obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, is say we go on the Bitcoin standard and we still got politicians and there's still tax going through. But would you be able to say this is a government wallet and then look at all the payments in and out of it, so you could actually track all of them and basically see what the dodgy goings on are?
Well, yeah, potentially, but just if it's on Bitcoin, obviously, you could also have private transactions, couldn't you? Right, so you could, and the thing is, like, a lot of the dodgy transactions, they do it in plain sight, right? So they will pay a supplier 500 million for some stuff that costs 100 million, but you don't know that there's 400 million gap there, and then behind the scenes, that wallet then pays off the people 3 rungs down. So they launder the money. They're money laundering experts, these guys. They don't send it from the central government wallet. They don't send your payoff. They're paying you $1 million. They don't pay it you from the fucking government wallet. They pay one supplier, pays another supplier, pays another supplier, who then contracts you to do one phone call for $1 million. And you jump on a call, you do the hour, you get paid $1 million for it. And everyone thinks, oh.
But with that little bit of transparency, would it raise more questions and potentially be a bit of a safer system than the current fiat closed doors banking?
Maybe. I think
because
there wouldn't be this money sloshing around. So the whole point really is there would still be corruption. You would still get away with it, because even if you could trace it, all people would do is coin join, use Lightning. You'd just move to a private chain, and you'd hide the transaction. The main point would be is that the only reason why so much corruption and money laundering can happen in government now is because they can print money out of thin air, and so it's not really coming from anywhere. So no one's really looking for it. They just print it, then give it to themselves, and it's like no one owned that money because they printed it. Whereas on a Bitcoin standard, they would be earning Bitcoin through their taxes. There would be a pot of that money. It'd be a finite amount, and they'd have to divvy it out. If a load just disappeared to the side, you would notice it. They couldn't just print more Bitcoin and fill the gap.
That's what I mean. Like, you get some plebs who'd just be going through all the transactions, and it'd happen. If that was on the ledger, they'd just be like, I'm going to find out where this has gone, and ask them, raise the questions, and investigation can be done. Whereas at the moment, everyone's going, I know this happens, but I can't see it.
Correct. That's the problem, isn't it?
Although in reality, you can see it, because every ex-president or prime minister has a private island in the Seychelles. It's like we fucking can see it. It's just that no one really wants to believe that the level of corruption that really exists. They think that they just get these really good business opportunities after being president or prime minister and just earn their way up. They don't. People
want to pay £1 million to him speak for 2 hours after dinner.
Yeah, and Janet Lenin, what was it? Hillary Clinton as well, $1 million an hour. Clear bribery and payoffs. These are not paid speeches. There's no way anyone would pay that for a speech. It's just nonsensical. Just bribery in plain sight. And they put, and the thing is, like, these guys put it in their tax returns. That it's there, it's in plain sight. But people just turn a blind. It's even the institutions that paid them to speak are listed. And usually it's the big banks, big energy, and big pharma. They're all just there, paying them $1 million a speech. It's clear bribery, but no one gives a fuck. Anyway.
But we don't say anything. Why do we not say anything?
It doesn't matter, does it?
You just can't prove it. There's no smoking gun there. And the fact, like,
so obvious. It's like
Mr. Orlin says, you kind of got this money out of thin air, so it's not really accounted for. It keeps on increasing. So you're like, oh, we won't miss that $100 million. And it's also about lack of accountability within government departments. You've got bribery, and you've got people being so incompetent.
Yeah, and the thing is, like we always say, like this level of corruption at this level, like we're accusing, right, the prime ministers, presidents of being corrupt, right? These guys run the FBI, they run the police. So the people that are responsible for cracking down on this are paid for by these guys. These are their boss. So do you investigate your boss? Of course you don't. You turn a blind eye. And then that's what they do. So they get away with it because they don't live under the same rules as us. Just as the king doesn't live under the same tax rules, he also doesn't sit under the same normal laws either. He can get away with a lot of stuff that we couldn't because he's the king.
I say there's weird rules around the Clintons. All their bodyguards seem to commit suicide.
Yeah, very short lifespan once you leave the employment of the Clintons. Should we move on to MicroStrategy? Back to Bitcoin.
Yeah, let's go and talk about Mr. Saylor, Michael Saylor. So MicroStrategy raised $500 million. So the question is it for Bitcoin or is it for Saylor's tax bill?
that was me being a little bit like,
I know, I love it.
So what do you think to this? Is he just so hellishly bullish, or is this something which I'm not seeing here?
Well, I think that it's tongue-in-cheek, but I do see this as double-pronged. A lot of Bitcoiners see this as super bullish, that he is raising $500 million and he's about to dump it into Bitcoin. But obviously the story we had on only last week or the week before was he's been investigated for not paying taxes in Washington for however many years. So the tax bill that he had could well be about $500 million. So this could be literally just to pay his tax bill. And none of this is going to go to Bitcoin whatsoever. But I don't think at the moment Saylor has commented on what this is. This Bitcoiners seem to have just twisted this already to go, like literally the tweet I've linked is they're raising 500 million to buy more Bitcoin. I read their statement. The word Bitcoin is not mentioned fucking once. So it just says they're raising 500 million. It does not say what they're doing with it.
Is Saylor commented on the whole tax evasion stuff?
I don't believe so.
No, I've not seen anything about it.
I haven't seen anything either.
Yeah.
But let's not forget, MicroStrategy's strategy is two things. It's to sell products and services as they were previously, but also to buy Bitcoin as well. So raising money, this should not raise any alarm bells or eyebrows, essentially, because this is what the business does. It raises capital in cash, which can be flipped on the other side because of the business that it has been a profitable business for the last 20 plus years, as Saylor's been the CEO for it, essentially. So, let's see what they do with it. Of course, as we always say, let's not just go by what they talk about. Let's see the actions.
He's going to buy all the Bored Apes. So you can have that collection.
Well, yeah. By this time next week, we will have seen the proof of work change to proof of stake within Ethereum, which is happening in 2 days' time. So,
so it's the 15th.
Yeah, the 15th.
I can't wait.
I keep mentioning this.
I can't wait. I'm just like kind of going, something go wrong. It could be hilarious.
It could be a great pump for Bitcoin, really, because if it fails, and I know what you said in terms of it being rolled back, but essentially it kills all the other shit coins.
Yeah, it could. If it fails, it'd be great. I just don't think they'd let it fail. It'll just be long.
Has anyone?
It just doesn't. It just doesn't matter.
Has anyone read the white paper on proof of stake?
No, it's probably a shit ton of gobbledygook by Vitalik.
Yeah,
the worst.
I've read numerous comments of people who claim to have read it, and they've said, "What is it? It's like they've taken the designs of a plane, ripped the wings off, and stuck them vertically." and then tried to work out the problem of how to get the plane to fly with its wings up vertically rather than horizontally.
That's Saifedean. Saifedean had that great quote where...
Oh, is it?
Well,
I just know it came from somewhere on Twitter.
Planes, but it was not quite that.
It's probably someone else ripped it off then.
Yeah, they've tweeted.
That sounds so like Safe as well.
Yeah, we literally had the video. He said that on Lex Friedman's podcast, and it's a genius quote. We had it on the podcast where.
Oh, the one which we had was Ethereum is a mother arsehole where all the shit coins spawn from.
Yeah, but then he also then described what proof of stake is, where it's like what you said. It's basically you take everything good about what Bitcoin is, you remove it all, and then carry on and pretend it's good, but much more devastatingly like Saifedean than that.
Oh, he's great on his comments.
He just goes in. He's just toxic to the max. I fucking love it. Doesn't give a shit who offends. He just goes in. So should we talk about Bitcoin being carbon neutral?
Really? Yeah. I saw this and I was just like, come on now, because it links into one of the other stories as well in terms of America as well. So we'll come on to that. But Bitcoin being carbon neutral, and obviously this is one of the criticisms that Bitcoin has. And I think that the average person hears how bad Bitcoin is for the environment and then quickly dismisses it. So there was somebody in work that talked about, oh, Bitcoin's bad for the environment. The transactions.
Did you immediately tell them to shut up?
Oh, I verbally slapped them down without a shadow of a doubt, and I hit them with the end of the FUD.
Did they say the transactions are slow?
Yeah, they said the transactions were slow.
Do you know what the response to that is?
Oh, of course,
2017 wants a FUD back.
They probably then called you a racist.
I was just really taken aback by the fact that these people just hear these things about Bitcoin. So it was three things. It was the classic Ponzi scheme, transactions are slow, and it's bad for the environment. All of which, for every listener that comes back each and every week, we've defunct all of this. But that is the mentality, and no one's actually then gone on to say, well, is it? And naturally, again, I shot all of those arguments down.
I know. Well, that's the thing with most things. I think, unfortunately, people don't read beyond the headline, and Bitcoin for them is just something that passes them by very, like, in their peripheral vision. It's not something they've really focused on. So of course, if I was like that, for example, there's probably a few subjects that I am like that, and the only thing that
NFTs.
Unfortunately, I spent too much time on that, but. I don't know, if you pick a random thing I don't care about, I don't know, like, I don't even know. Formula One, go on, I don't care about that. But peripherally, I've probably got some bad views on that. Oh, there's no overtaking, it's boring, and just Ferrari win every year or something. They're probably all wrong, because that's just...
Well, it was Hamilton, wasn't it, and then he lost.
Yes, see, so straight away, it's just a little example of, like, I have a tiny little bit of knowledge, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I don't follow it, and I haven't followed it for a decade. So, and that's what a lot of people do with Bitcoin, I think. They don't know it. They've never looked at it. They've never read a single decent book about Bitcoin, but they've heard about it quite a lot in their peripheral vision. It just keeps coming up. And the things, if you only listen to those, is Ponzi scheme, slow, corrupt, and bad for the environment. It's the media are very good at brainwashing, and because not only does your brain naturally pick up on stuff like that, I think there's a concerted effort by the media to FUD Bitcoin, because
it came up in the
very
office.
obvious reasons.
I was in the office for the first time in months last week, and it came up. Do you know what my response was?
Well,
you aren't ready.
You aren't ready.
I just said you aren't ready. You don't understand money.
Yeah, go back. You need to go back 5 steps. Yeah.
Yeah, literally, it sounds like so condescending, but it's actually so true. And it applied to myself. It applied to Sir Neverlook there. I think that's when I told him to read the Bitcoin Standard. And he said, I don't want to read that. I like my property. I said, you'll learn about money. Literally, that is the one key thing which you take from it and you kind of go, oh, shit. Now it's about money. I want to go back to my pod.
Yeah, and it unveils everything. If they're lying about the money, what else they're lying about? And you realize, oh, fucking everything.
And this is literally just my line to anyone when they're trying to bring up some FUD about Bitcoin. Say, you're not ready. You don't know it. You don't understand money. You need to know about money first. And they just look at you thinking you absolute twat. And I'm just like, I just don't care.
It doesn't matter. Like, it's going to happen whether you're on board or not. Like,
it's inevitable. I believe it's inevitable, but these people, they just don't understand the basics. But it's not a bad thing because I was exactly in the same boat.
And the good thing for all of us and for everyone listening is it keeps the price of Bitcoin low. We're at $20,000 right now. Like for as long as they don't believe that the price stays around 20K. Beautiful. As many people as possible stack sats, because before you know it, blink and it'll be $1 million a coin. And we'll just be thinking, holy shit, it happened, and it'll just be normal. So quickly it'll be normal. But these 20K days are just going to be, this is the golden era. This is, if you're in the property market, this is like the 80s, where the average house price is like 30K. And you fast forward 30 years, the average house price is 300K. You're like, fucking, wish I could go back to the 80s. That was where the money was. And that's where we are with Bitcoin right now. It's at 20K now. We're going to be at like $1 million in like 5-10 years, and everyone's going to be like, oh, I wish I got some of that sweet Bitcoin back at 20K.
Yeah,
we're there now.
And it'll be like, oh, how could anyone know? People are just gambling on it. It's just like the amount which I've read about Bitcoin, economics, finance.
Well, the good thing about it is like this pod is good proof of work. We've because obviously we talked about it for years before this, and then we finally got on here and chatted shit about it for 2 hours a week for like, I don't know, however many years it will be by the time like this comes.
I just want I want the hyper Bitcoinization so I can buy a small hoarding and become a farmer.
Yeah, I want hyper Bitcoinization so I can buy a world company, burn it down, and piss on the ashes.
I just want my own farm. Really simple.
I've got that now. I'm just full of vengeance.
I don't want a supercar. I just want some chickens, some cows, and some sheep.
I want to be fucking Iron Man.
But what has this got to do with Bitcoin being carbon neutral by 2024?
Oh my God, how did we get onto this?
I know. I was just thinking, who's going to actually bring this one back?
So the thing which I don't understand about this, so we've got people using renewable energy near the source because it can't be stored. There's no effective batteries. So things like the dams, I think in Canada are being cited, solar panels, and then there's also wasted energy. So gas flares from oil mining. But what I don't understand is when it says carbon negative mining, because I couldn't find anywhere in the article which explained what it meant, unless that is things like the gas flares off oil mining.
Yeah, it'd be the gas flares, because normally that would be waste that is adding pollution. So you're taking waste and turning it into something positive, as opposed to burning coal purposefully and then using the energy. If you can access somehow the emissions and turning it good, you can be neutral on that. But to be negative, it needs to be a waste product and then turn it around. Yeah,
I just look at this and think, if we can't fight Bitcoin, we've got to fight tumble dryers.
Yeah. Well,
air conditioning units.
I know that's always the thing. Like, always put this into context, and yeah, this whole energy thing is largely nonsense. But it is kind of crazy that to say that Bitcoin is 62.4% zero emissions, technically virtually already, and is going to be hit essentially net zero by 2024. Like when I read that, it's like in 2 years, literally the prediction is that Bitcoin already is essentially carbon neutral. Is kind of crazy.
Do you know what Bitcoin needs to do? The CEO needs to hire an ESG manager, program manager. to get this sorted, and then we can put it on all the RFIs.
But it's things like this, isn't it, that really need to be brought to the forefront, maybe by our politician, Pierre Poilievre.
Yeah, because it's one of those weird things, isn't it? Right? Because the thing is, like, we always said Bitcoin was always going to go this way because Bitcoin mining doesn't need a city. So a lot of energy that needs to be created needs to be near people, because it's the people that need the energy. So the second you start doing that thing, land is more expensive, like cabling is more expensive, everything's more expensive because you're in a city. And so it's just, and the chances are the natural resources around, like rivers and just land in general, solar, everything, gas, it's all just much harder to come by because there's a city around. There's buildings everywhere. It's very tough to do. The cheapest energy is in the middle of fucking nowhere, in very cold places that no one wants to live, and there's nothing there. But Bitcoin mining doesn't need people. It just needs a shack with a load of machines in it. So, of course,
wouldn't you have a pleb in there covered in Cheeto dust?
Yeah, you'd have one pleb in there just restarting miners occasionally and dusting them off. So it was always going to go this way, where Bitcoin miners were always going to migrate out of the cities to find this cheap energy. And ideally the waste energy that people are literally charging nothing for, or very, very cheap energy that people are just largely throwing away, or just, in the middle of nowhere in very cold places. Obviously, cold places are beneficial to Bitcoin mining as well, because you need cooling for the miners. They get very hot. And if it's already cold, just opening the window and letting some cold air in, that's free, as opposed to using very expensive air conditioning. So
maybe that's could be my plan. Go and live somewhere cold and be, I don't know, some kind of ice farmer with a mining rig. Maybe I could do that now.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to remember the cost of mining Bitcoin in 198 different countries.
That's a brilliant one.
It's brilliant. Kuwait, that was it. Kuwait is the cheapest place to mine Bitcoin for $1,394.
So they have a lot of solar energy over there.
Maybe.
Or is it crazy, isn't it? Like that kind of price. Like, why aren't people flooding to Kuwait and just miners and just arbitrage shit out of that?
Exactly.
I think possibly because it's a bit of a restricted country. I think with customs and probably laws like alcohol and everything else.
But yeah, it's a really good one to remind ourselves that one, again, we are so early, but two, you could stack so much if obviously it was accessible within order to be able to do.
Yeah, you literally it's just free money, right? You throw 50k of miners at that, and over the course of the year you would earn, like, say 50k of Bitcoin at that, say, let's just say it's 2k. That 50k will be worth $500,000 on the market if you got the Bitcoin out of Kuwait and then sold it.
Yeah, so if you want a few countries, there's Trinidad and Tobago, which is 13k. Suriname, is that 14k?
Suriname, yeah.
Suriname, 14k. And then we got the others, Mongolia, 11k. So we've got these random countries popping up. Bloody hell, Solomon Islands, 142k.
Yeah.
Oman, 11k. So Iran, 10. Well, but yeah, Kuwait's just on its own. Why is it so cheap? Is it subsidized by the government?
Well, maybe it's the oil. Don't know. Something's there, isn't it? Something's there to make sure that is so low.
Sudan at 4.7.
Yes.
So there's a selection of countries, but I think some may be a little bit dangerous.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, once we hit Bitcoin hyperinflation, like this will all go away. Like this type of arbitrage. And if you're ever going to trade Bitcoin or try and be clever with Bitcoin, this type of arbitrage is the stuff to do, because this is provided. Obviously, it comes with risk, but if you can get miners into certain countries that have either cheap energy or they're subsidized or whatever the fuck's going on in these countries, if you can get Bitcoin for less than 20k when it's if it's priced at 20k in America and Europe, and you're getting it for anything from 2k to 10k, that is free money. Just mine the shit out of Bitcoin and get it for that, because that's 2017 prices. And
Yeah.
Are you going to get a miner, some solar panels and a miner?
Yeah. It's on the list.
Cool. Be interested when you get that. We'll have to have a show and tell and stake.
Yeah. Well, or alternatively, I'd like to buy in a percentage.
Okay. Yeah.
That is actually a very, very good shout. We could group fund.
Yeah.
Yeah, crowdfund a little mining operation. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You've got this space in the land, and yeah, I'll happily put some in to that. You could have solar panels on the garage or on the barn to keep it going. Wind turbines on the land.
Yeah. Well, there's just good old oil and gas and electricity as well. That's the good thing, right? I'm fossil fuels and green as well. It's just, why not? Why would you ever pick one? Just have everything. And then you just plug in the cheapest one at the time. Ideally, you take the green, you take the solar, but when they're not running, you don't want your miner just off. And you just flip over to the grid. So
yeah.
Right. Do we want to talk about the next one?
That's a nice little side project for the 4Bs.
but if we if we were to consider moving to the US, apparently they're going to consider banning Bitcoin mining, according to some legislation which they're considering banning proof of work. So the bits highlighted in this is, should these measures prove ineffective at reducing impacts, the administration should explore executive actions, and Congress might consider legislation to limit or eliminate the high use of energy or intensity consensus mechanisms. And this is in reference to, they're saying it has to be low energy, low water usage, low noise generation, and clean energy usage. So I'm kind of going, if it's low or clean energy usage, what does that mean? It's very broad statements, and things like noise as well. Like,
yeah, I picked up the noise one as well, because Bitcoin miners are noisy.
So if you're on your own land, 10 acres, why can't you have your own noisy miner which no one else can hear?
Well, to be fair, if Bitcoin miners can be very noisy. If you just had a few, it'd be fine. But like some Bitcoin miners, they have like 10,000 rigs all set up. It's like there's a swarm of bees for like a 50-mile radius. It's pretty bad. Like, you have to have a lot of sound insulation. So I did like the fact they added noise in, because the one thing we can't do yet with Bitcoin miners is make them quiet. We can make them, as we literally just discussed in the last story, they're nearly already energy neutral and like carbon neutral. So that one goes away. But then it's going to go, oh, they're too noisy. And now you're like, oh, fuck. Like, and they're only noisy when there's 10,000 of them. If I just have 5 in my garage, then it's not bothering anyone. But if you have 10,000 in your garage, you'll bother your neighborhood now.
But they say low energy usage as well. It's like, who's to define what that is? And low energy, it's still using energy, but I'm using renewables, but it's not low energy, is what they'll say.
Yeah, well, the argument can always be in comparison to what, like fracking, in comparison to digging and mining for gold, for oil, etc. But of course, some of those things don't happen in said countries as well. So, I don't know if they are still mining for gold in the US.
There will be somewhere. There'll be a setup.
Yeah. So the argument could be, well, what's the comparative noise for all of those things versus Bitcoin?
Yeah. Well, I think
mining.
Because that's always been the argument. I think it's just that they don't argue on fair grounds. They're not arguing. No. Their argument is Bitcoin doesn't do anything. It's just a volatile network for criminals. Whereas anything else, like even tumble dryer,
it's triggering me.
At least the tumble dryer, it uses 20 times more energy than the whole Bitcoin network. But at least we get dry clothes, and no one gets scammed. And you're like, well, when you when you straw man the argument like that, and then yeah, I'm pro tumble dryer. Like, let's switch off those Bitcoin miners. But it's obviously like, no, like the real reason they want the Bitcoin miners off is because it's challenging their control of money. That's why they're against it, and it's why they're completely ignoring the benefits of Bitcoin and just focusing on the very small edge cases of what the odd person uses it for. Which, of course, whenever you even want to slightly counteract that, oh, Bitcoin's used for criminality, the number one currency used for drug dealing globally is the US dollar. Yeah. So should we ban that? Like, no, it's good money attracts criminals. It's almost a sign of good money. Criminals want to trade in it. It's just, yeah.
I'm going to put you guys on the spot a little bit. So go on.
I was just going to say, interestingly, I was reading something last night. I can't remember what the book is, but it was talking about how the UK made it impossible for cars 150 years ago by requiring a driver, a flagman, so someone who has to walk 60 yards ahead, and an engineer, so for one car. And it had a 2 mile per hour limit in towns and 4 mile per hour limit in the countryside. And they said, why do we need cars when we have horses and carts? Because they're putting all these restrictions on it to stop cars being effective.
Yep. And guess who the government were run by at the time? People that owned all the horses and carts.
Yeah. And where did cars really take off? US. It's part of that slope of America rising, the UK falling. So it's a real interesting comparison between the two. Cars, and I don't think you'd ever consider it. I hadn't heard of any of that until last night when I read it. I was like, my God, this is stupid. Yeah. And no wonder we lost the global reserve currency.
You hit the nail on the head, because that's exactly what I was just about to ask, in terms of thinking back to prior inventions and where there were all of these hurdles put in place to kind of limit the growth of it, as opposed to people kind of embracing it and saying, right, well, yeah, it's loud, but what can we do to just accept that and to kind of enhance the qualities of it?
Weirdly, it's every single one, right? You can go through the internet, the telephone, roads. Normally, the first port of call is they're useless because no one uses it yet. Like, who am I going to make a phone call to? Who am I going to drive to? There's no roads. Cars are pointless. I can't drive anywhere. And you go, yeah, but cars are so much faster than horses. People will build the roads. And you go, I don't believe you. I'm going to stick to my horse. And it's the same with the telephone. I don't believe you. People are going to put these telephone lines in. Everyone's going to have a telephone in their home. I don't believe you. Same with the internet. Like, why would I send an email? No one's got an email address.
Well, the internet's a really good comparison, because it was for money launderers, drug dealers, pedos, and God knows what else was what is originally placed as, because it's a series of message boards.
So do you just simply take the rule of thumb that if it's banned, if it's said not to be worthwhile, then it probably is, and you should look into it more?
Don't know, not necessarily. I just think like all new technology goes through this adoption curve where we need critical mass. Once it's obvious, then obviously all the investment potential is gone. So if you're going to invest in the internet, the phone, or roads and cars, and then suddenly everyone's got a car, the internet, and a phone, it's too late. And it'll be the same when everyone's got Bitcoin. That'll be when Bitcoin's price is stable. The time to make any type of investment is when the majority of people don't think it will work. And you have to make a critical analytical view, because there's plenty of inventions that come up that have this network effect problem of no one uses it yet. But 99.9% of inventions that people have that problem for, people never use it. But in my view, Bitcoin has well and truly overcome that adoption curve, and it's well on the way to mass adoption. 200.
Well, think about the internet. It was 75 the original protocols were invented, and then in the early 90s it started taking off a little bit, and people were still like, oh, it's nothing. And then 2000 it started really ramping up, and that was the point when the dot-com bubble came around, when everyone really went hell for leather. But it can be compared easily to a shitcoin. So you've got your Amazon, which is your Bitcoin, because it's the one which really came out well, versus there's some terrible ones where people just threw money at it because it had .com on the name. Yeah, and people throwing money at it, and it's just like, what's the actual business? But then Amazon, 2001, Amazon still really wasn't anything. It was a loss leader. I remember reading about it in a business lecture, and going, this is crap. It's just people are obsessed with it. And then 10 years later, it's getting really, really good. And then 10 years again, bringing us to present day. And it's just like, it's taken over the world because it's filled that niche and may have that vision to go from, may understand how to evolve the business as well. And I look at Bitcoin, you think about the initial is, it picked what was sound money. And then it looked, well, it's good. But then it started going, how are we going to get mass adoption? So you got Lightning, you've got literature, and you got pods, you've got probably shows as well. And it's getting mainstream. Looks like it's leading to this absolute mass adoption crash when it is going to be too late, like Mr. Ullin said.
I'm always confident, because the way to really analyze, is Bitcoin on that journey? Not only is it user numbers, just do the competitor analysis. And our competitor analysis is shitcoins and fiat. And does Bitcoin beat those by 20% or more? It's hands down smashing those all to pieces. Obviously, government money is so corrupt and it's just so out of control. And then you've got shitcoins that just, there's literally the Bitcoin is so far ahead when it comes to the sound money category. I couldn't be any more confident than being literally all in on that asset.
The issue is I think with shitcoins, it's a really easy argument because you've got a mixture of things which don't know what they are, and they're literally fiat in disguise, but they're digital. And then you've got things which are technology, which aren't actually currency. They're like smart contracts. It's just like, but this isn't a currency. Why are you investing in it? It's just a piece of technology which someone could, put into a better money or better monetary system. But with fiat, the issue is that it's adoption. Everyone uses fiat. So how do you go against that? How do you argue against it? We know it's not sound. It doesn't. Sorry?
Everyone used horses.
Well, the rich did. The poor got trampled by them.
It's a nice soundbite. Yeah, you're right. I mean, ultimately, it's like everything that we've gone through, isn't it? In terms of like from a monetary perspective, people used to trade cattle, then it was like salt, there's various different things, and eventually people kind of transform over into the new norm.
Because on average, it takes 50 years. And I've always been hopeful that it would take less this time. It's the whole, this time it's different. But maybe it's not different. And essentially, we're 13 years in. So we still have, another, 37 years to go. Was it 40? No, 37, yeah. And so it would be pretty much, if it's going to take 50 years, that would be 2058 or 2053. No, what is it?
So 30, so it'd be 20, 2050, 2059.
59. So it's quite a while away. So potentially that is how long like a new form of money takes to take grip of a society and force it through. It's that's how long it takes unsound money to find sound money. So we're all hopeful it happens much quicker than that. And I think the fact that the fiat system is acting so recklessly right now should push more people this way.
I was going to say that's the kind of swing, because when it goes to pure fiat money, so away from anything backed, money tends to fall over quite quickly. I mean, it's also the type of currency and the type of civilization. We've got these various patterns which are converging to the end.
Yeah,
it's happened numerous times. So like the whole democracy model / capitalism, or rather cronyism, which is going on, the fact that we're running on this monetary system which may have all fallen apart in similar ways in the past. So it's just, you hope it's going to happen because it is going wild at the moment.
I do think, unfortunately, though, our personal desires, as again we were talking just before we went on air, for hyper Bitcoinization will be longer than it actually happens. So, I would love it in the next 5 years or tomorrow, but I think it is going to be a lot longer than that. And I think we'll still hit our adoption curve in terms of 1 billion people, but yet it'll still be slower than it would normally, or again, as we would like to have it happen. When that happens, however, it then has to fight the current norms as well, doesn't it? So, for example, as we started at the top of the show, the Queen's dead. We're now going to get in new money with Charles's face, I'm sure, all over it. And so there'll be more fiat printed. And then people will want to hold on to that for a lot longer and everything that comes along with that. And then CBDCs will come into effect. And that will push Bitcoin back even further as well from being the sound money that it is.
Yeah, so the CBDCs could be 30 years, couldn't they?
Yeah. So there's these things that will happen along the way that, Bitcoin will still be there, but it will push it back. And it will mean that the adoption won't be as quick as if everybody kind of educated themselves and thought, actually, yeah, these guys are on pod 67 were actually telling me the truth on pod number 1.
Yeah. The upside is you get to stack more sats. So
yeah,
there's more chance to get your
and it's not just going to be a big bang as well. It's going to happen in stages. So it's
what happened in multiple big bangs, I would say, like lots of small bangs. Like it won't get
COVID.
It'll go along.
I mentioned the word
because it's
cancelled.
So it's like in 3 years' time. It's kind of like you think something's probably going to happen again after the next halving, but it's very hard to foresee. I doubt you would have seen a country adopting Bitcoin in El Salvador, and Central African Republic, and companies having Bitcoin on the balance sheet like Tesla and MicroStrategy. Did you when you were first in?
No, not this quickly. No,
Yeah.
I genuinely, when I first invested, I thought if Bitcoin got to 10K by 2025, I would be extremely happy. And it went to 69K.
He's now we're grumpy bastard.
and now we're at 20K and everyone's down the dumps, and I'm still double my top end target would double. It's still kind of nuts.
Yeah, I'm still in the red.
Yeah, this is the life, man. It's
I was gonna say I've got enough conviction. I just don't speak to the wife about it.
A little bit like Pomp.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Well, this is interesting. I watched his video on this. So Anthony Pompliano was all in on Bitcoin. He was promoting everything and everyone associated with Bitcoin, including Laser Eyes. He was affiliated with Celsius as well, in terms of the network that is now no more and broke, and probably owes a lot of people that were foolish enough to give up some of their Bitcoin to them for these gains, bro. And he's come out and said, maybe I shouldn't have been so bullish, but I am still convicted in terms of following Bitcoin.
It's our time.
Yeah.
The thing
I just can't.
Pop was always a bit of a shitcoiner.
I just looked at it and thought, why did he remove his Laser Eyes? It's still not really clear because he's just said, I'm still in Bitcoin, but why did he remove it?
And even Bitcoin from his bio as well. Now it just says entrepreneur, investor, and lifelong learner. And I read his email that was like, oh, you can't be a learner in something that you have tied your identity to.
Yes,
so therefore, and I just went, what a load of shit, mate. Because like, let's just say like you're a random investor and you're just like teaching people how to invest. Then yeah, sure. Like if I was that guy and I had Amazon or Tesla or whatever in my bio, that makes me biased towards those stocks. And yeah. So I'm always going to want those stocks to pump because I have it in my bio. They go down, everyone's going to be coming for me. But for me, Bitcoin is so much more than an investment. It's what we've always discussed on this pod. This is literally the separation of government and money. It's not just another investment. It's more important than that. So whether the price goes up, down, left, right, or sideways, it's like a calling. This is so important. We fix so much of society's ills if we get sound money, like right across education, health, no matter whatever you care about in your life, like will be better on a Bitcoin standard. So it's just more than investment. And like we should be tying ourselves to Bitcoin because we really give a shit. And Bitcoin needs as many active promoters as possible so others understand what Bitcoin is really, and it isn't just, oh, you get rich in fiat terms. It's like, nah, fiat is it's going to hit hyperinflation. Like one Bitcoin would be worth $1 trillion at some point, but $1 trillion won't even buy you a loaf of bread. It doesn't even matter. It's going to be like Zimbabwe dollars. So for him to remove it completely and like essentially just sanitize his profile just to be this like generic investing social media influencer is super disappointing. He reckons it's nothing to do with his confidence in Bitcoin is not diminished, but come on, when you completely whitewash your social media and don't even see laser eyes or Bitcoin anywhere on your profile, come on, you're just
say mine doesn't say anything like on Twitter, but I'm not a mass poster.
No, you're my reply guy.
Yeah, it usually comes from my thread. I'm like, oh, what's Mr. All looking at? I was going to say, you can maybe try and do some laser eyes to my profile picture, but I don't think it's really that easy. You'd have to have it burning down shelves or something.
Haven't you got like a fat American in like a scooter?
Yeah, falling down on some shelves. If you had some laser eyes, we'd be burning through the shelves.
It's not even clear though. It's not even like it's got like an American. Oh yeah, it's American. Oh yeah, he's falling over on the shelves.
Like we had some laser eyes, you could have like the shelves on fire and these laser eyes going everywhere.
I don't know if you guys used to watch Pump's show on YouTube.
I did. I watched it. I haven't watched it for ages. So is it?
I don't think he does it. I think he's even stopped the show. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, because it was him and his brothers, and it was called
Best Business.
Like, the Best Business Show. That's right. So I mean, it wasn't straight down the line on Bitcoin. It was the Best Business Show.
You know what I think's happened here? Fucking hell, it's just come to freaking mind. He's capitulating. The Bitcoin bear market is exposed another fraud. He's invested too much money. He's probably leveraged. I know he's in shitcoins. He's invested a lot of money in shitcoins. He's probably invested a lot of money in that show.
Don't you usually see like a cycle with some of the big Bitcoiners where it's almost like they're bored of Bitcoin because they're so rich? Like you've had Kobe, you've had Andreas, whatever his second name is.
Antopoulos.
Yeah.
Is it Breedlove's another one?
Yeah.
Raul, no, it's not Raul, I've forgotten his name.
Raul Paul.
But you've had all these ones who've got massively rich from Bitcoin and they've obviously just almost got a bit bored of the concept and started shitcoining.
Now, normally what this actually does show, and it's a very, very good sign for anyone that's a bit depressed about the price. Normally, once we've had a big bull market, when the sign of the end of the bear market is when some big key influencers capitulate and move and distance themselves from Bitcoin. We had this back in, what was it, 2020, 2021, before we had the pump up to 69K. A load of famous Bitcoiners from 2017 capitulated and went, I'm out. This is just too painful. They always give different excuses. They always just say, oh, I'm going off to different interests. Da, 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 da. In reality, what it means is they've over leveraged. They've ended up being skint. They got too excited. They've leveraged too much debt up, and they're skint. And they have to sell their Bitcoin. They have to move on. They move on to other things, and then the price pumps. So normally, when the last of these influencers capitulate, that's the bottom of the bear market, and off we fucking go. So if Pomp's a casualty of this bear market, then so be it. It's probably a little bit sad. He had a lot of good things to say, but he was a shitcoiner. He did like his shitcoins. He did like.
So I've never picked him out doing shitcoins, but I probably haven't listened to enough of him.
Yeah, he invested a load of them.
Like I said, I just never get it, because is it sound money? I mean, if it isn't sound money, it's technology. Why are you investing in a shitcoin, not some kind of technology company?
His thesis was he thought the whole world was going to get tokenized. Everything was going to have a own. Like, he thought Bitcoin was going to be money, but just as you can buy shares in a company, it's like, oh, you're going to buy shares in a house, you're going to buy shares in your dinner. Like, you just got it wrong.
I also think that because he had a lot of sponsorship from the likes of like exchanges and Bitcoin related companies, because of the bear market, I think that they've also probably pulled their resources back and their marketing budgets back, which hasn't, well obviously used to fund him and the show. And so with that gone, it's left him high and dry.
Yeah. So positive thing is maybe he's the last. Maybe it's because the thing is that literally he removed his laser eyes. I think we're at 19k. We pumped like 23. Today we've undone some of those gains, but it was almost like Pomp removing his laser eyes was the bottom of the bear market. Let's finally go for that 100k now. Because I imagine if laser eyes to 100k, you don't want to be the first or the last guy to take them off, and then we get there. Like, come on, like,
isn't the pattern usually? But you've got your big increase a year after the halving, and then afterwards you have a big dip. I mean, it continues. I mean, you get to another dip, and it goes even further, and it's the last 6 months to a year before the next halving when the interest comes back, and you kind of get that uptick towards that cycle where it goes above. So it, kind of like looking at historically, we should have another decrease.
I know. The only counter argument against that now is the uptick.
It's a model.
Halving broke all the models. So all the models. We should have gone higher than 69k. So because we didn't, now it's a case of, well, now does the bear market go as deep? Does it go as long? No one really knows. We're in uncharted.
And we're in the first recession since Bitcoin was invented.
Yeah, and the halvings mean less and less as well, because obviously they keep halving. So it started at 50 Bitcoin every 10 minutes to 25 to 12.5 to 6.25. So it's 6.25 now, and once we go to 3, then it's not, each halving has a less of an impact on the network. So who knows? Who knows if we're still in a halving cycle? Maybe we are. Maybe this is not the end of the bear.
So do you not think that the halving in 2024 will have an impact on the price?
It probably will in some degree, but I think my theory would be we will break out of the typical 4-year cycle, and it will just become more of a longer just market cycle, along with what as fiat does. Fiat is more of a 10 to 20 year cycle. We'll mold into that as we get more mature, because I think that the halving means less and less and less. So maybe 2024 we're still in it, maybe even 2028. But if you keep going, eventually the amount of Bitcoin being halved is so inconsequential at that point that surely it must just mold into just noise. In reality, it's just the general supply and demand of who's buying and selling Bitcoin at that point. That will be the market cycle. And suddenly, obviously on the Bitcoin standard, we should be in much more stable cycles instead of these boom and busts. But whilst we're in the fiat standard, which is we will still be in, we're going to get these boom and busts on the other side, and that's going to affect Bitcoin, because whenever we have a bust, people are going to sell Bitcoin. They shouldn't, but we know they will, because they've lost everything on one side. So of course they have to sell everything just to feed their kids and keep a roof over their head, and that includes their Bitcoin if that's the case. So Bitcoin will, I think, over probably the next decade, will merge from a 4-year cycle into a 10 to 20-year cycle to mirror fiat, and then eventually will become its own cycle, which hopefully is more like a 100 or 200-year cycle, which is way more stable. And if anything, like the ideal is we're not even in cycles anymore. On a Bitcoin standard, we don't have cycles. Good businesses grow, sometimes they go bust. Doesn't mean the whole sector goes bust. Just one company made a fuck up, they die.
Well, on a Bitcoin standard, it's literally a carrot costs the same as long as production stays the same. It's like production becomes harder, a carrot costs more, it becomes easier, a carrot costs less. And you haven't got to contend with inflation and silly taxes to work out what exactly is happening with your money.
Yeah. In reality, unless there's more or less carrots one year, the price of a carrot will always be the same for now or 200 years time, which is which means suddenly we're out of cycles now. Fiat system is the price of a carrot will always go up because the amount of fiat is always increasing. So, and
also government restrictions, government subsidies. If that subsidy is paid out and it hits a certain amount, the government buys the carrots, so therefore the price of carrots is contained. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, good old price.
Definitely be, I mean, like you were saying as well before we started to get on there, all I do is watch YouTube. A tube all day long. Like I'm working, it'll be in the background, I'll be listening. I'm working out on YouTube. So terrestrial TV or anything else pretty much doesn't exist. I get my news from Twitter and YouTube. So I'll be watching to see what prompts us next, or if he just dies a death and just fades into the background.
He'll be back in the bull market. I think he might just get
it'll be fit into the category like with Kobe, where everyone kind of semi pays attention, but they're no longer one of the proper Bitcoiners. They're not a maxi. They'll just be like, he likes Bitcoin, but he's also a shitcoiner, so just don't fully listen to him.
Cool. All right. Any last thoughts?
No, I'm done. Let's get out of here.
The only thing is buy Bitcoin.
Right, well, there we have it. That was pod number 67 of the 4Bs, Bullish Bitcoin Banter and Bullshit, brought to you, as always, by Mr. Orlin, aka the $1 Trillion Man, Dr. Evil 10%, also known as the People's Champ, myself, Sir Neverlock, you know what I am, the excellence of execution, and she was here, but she is never here. Still with the link, still not here, Mrs. No Show. Peace.